Welcome back. It's the Marketer of the Day podcast. Jenn Foster is here from authorjenfoster.com and from eliteonlinepublishing.com. We are going to get the latest hot take, what you need to know now about publishing your book. If you've thought about publishing, if you've published before, things change so much, especially with all these weird changes with Amazon and print on demand and social media, podcasting, so much more. So Jenn Foster is here to tell us about all the things that she herself has seen as a 16-time best-selling author, but also as a marketing and a publishing expert. So Jenn Foster, glad to speak with you and meet with you, even though I feel like I sort of don't know you, but also do know you.
Thank you, Robert, for having me on the show.
Glad to have you. And so what makes you stand out? What makes you unique? People are always thinking, well, do I self-publish? Do I use this or that publisher? What makes you yourself, Jenn Foster, such an amazing standout person? And why is Elite Online Publishing also equally super cool?
Yeah, so we started in the book publishing industry back in 2015 when things were just getting started on Amazon and people were starting to self-publish. And before that, I was in marketing. So I was doing video marketing, digital marketing, social media marketing, SEO, which is search engine optimization. So it really makes it unique having the marketing background that I do, that I can help others to market their books and publish their books so that they can become bestsellers, as well as they can get exposure and use their book continually for their business, or if they're fiction, for their author career.
Wonderful. And I'm hearing two really important goals that are missed sometimes, right? The first goal of making your book a bestseller, because what's the point of just uploading a cover and a Word document? That's fine, I guess, but you want to get lots of attention and the social proof and the traffic. And then you also mentioned this idea of the goal of your book. And that's something that I mean, you probably think you see this too. Authors miss out on this, right? They think that, oh, I published a book. Whoa, that was 2 years of my life. That's all done. And it's like, wait a second. Don't you want this book to build your following, to get clients, to make you sales, to lead to other things? And so what is possible once someone gets this bestseller status or they have their goals aligned? Like what sort of things, what doors of opportunity does that open up?
Yeah, well, it really starts when you first start putting pen to paper and starting to write the book. Because when you're writing a book, especially a nonfiction book, you have, and it's true with fiction too, but you have to be writing to that one person. And when you start writing your book and you know who that one person is that you're writing to, then it's a lot easier to set those marketing goals and know what you want your book to do when they're done reading your book, right? So it's like, here's my book. They are on the very last page. What do you want them to know? What do you want them to say? What do you want them to do when they close that book? What do you want them to do next? What do you want them to say? And how do you want them to feel? And if you know that going into writing the book, then you can write the book for a specific purpose, whether it's to build your clientele and to have more clients, or if it's a fiction book and you just want to write it so you can share your message, you can get them to buy the next book, right? So you can become that fiction author that has, multiple income streams, basically, of people buying your book, speaking, and all the different ways you can create money with a book.
I like that a lot. So you're saying that if we're stuck even at the starting point, or we have writer's block of any kind, and we're worried about writing the Wikipedia page or the dictionary, or we say, I could go in a million different directions, you say, okay, here's how you focus. You figure who's the person that's stuck that needs help, and then what do you want them to do? What kind of website do you want them to go to, or what kind of action do you want them to take? And that seems like just those two ideas alone really narrows things down, because that way you have, in a way, a start to finish. You think, okay, who's this person? What problems do they have? What are their fears and frustrations? And then I can start to think, okay, well, here's how I can like wake them up, get their attention, explain what their current problems are, explain some solutions. And then it doesn't solve all of it, but it seems to cut down on a lot of the problems. And so
Yeah.
when you have been dealing with these authors and seeing all these excellent books go out, like what would you say separates the bad books from the good books?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times people will write a book and just like they'll say, okay, I just want to publish it on Amazon and I just want to have it out there so people can buy it. And then, like you said earlier, they put it out there and then they just like they call it. Just, I'm going to put it on there, pray that someone buys it. I don't think that's how it works, right? There's so much
Yeah, not at
competition out
all.
there that you have to market that book. You have to tell people, you have to let people know my book's out. I need you to go buy the book. You got, so we do a book launch campaign. We do a bestseller campaign and release the book with a bestseller campaign in order to get people to know about your book. Because if you're just putting it up on Amazon and hoping people go and get it, then it's wishful thinking. It's like the lottery, so I don't know if you're going to win. So what you need to do is have that marketing plan in place, whether it's a bestseller campaign or you have specific ways that you want to market the book, to get eyes on the book, right? So your social media following, if you have a book video trailer, there's so many different ways you can do it. We have a book called, it's called Podcast Authorized, and it's how to turn your podcast into a book or your book into a podcast. So that book right alone, we can do multiple podcasts about that book. We can put it out on Amazon. There's lots of different ways to market that book, but that's just one example of different books you can put out there and how you can create the content and create the marketing buzz around it, right? So there's lots of different ways, but you have to have a marketing plan or else you probably won't sell any books.
I agree that any place you publish, any platform, they give you a little bit of help, but it's definitely not all done for you, right? You
Right.
publish on Amazon, sure, a few people will see it, a few people will buy it, and just like equally so, if you make a Facebook post, a few people will see it. You put out a YouTube video, you'll get a few views, but if you just post that one thing and then say, okay, well, I'm going off to the next thing, then it'll be almost nothing. So we need to send our own traffic and we need to kind of do our own repetition and thought leadership. And so if someone says, okay, well, that makes sense, but then I'm needing help on how it all comes together. Like you mentioned about like social media or book trailer. And so when you're talking about this thing like a book launch, it sounds impressive, but it also sounds overwhelming and scary. So with a book launch, like, is there like a set amount of work or like time period or amount of things per day or step-by-step plan? Like what goes into a book launch besides everything?
Yeah, besides everything. Well, really, it starts with the plan and knowing what you want to accomplish. So, having that goals of what you want to accomplish. So, when we do a book launch campaign for an author or for ourselves, we start with what our goal is, which is to become a bestseller or an international bestseller, right? So, if that's our goal, then we can work backwards from there to know, okay, what's our book about? What keywords, what categories, where can we put that book on Amazon to make sure that it hits bestseller, but also who's going to buy the book on launch day. So who are those people, whether it's your followers on social media or it's your list that you have like an email list, or you have a list of friends and family, or you have a list of, your BNI group or whatever networking group you have, who's going to buy that book. And so we create that and help you create that when we work with an author, so that you have that launch team ready. You have your book launch team, you have your supporters, so that when your book releases, it's like you're right there at the 10-yard line, ready to make a touchdown. You're ready to have a best-selling book so that you can boost your marketing efforts from there, right? In all
Yeah,
honesty, a bestseller, you might only sell, 250 books on launch day, right? It might not be that many books, but the average book sells about 200 copies in the lifetime of the book. So selling around 250 copies the first day is pretty awesome, actually.
right. Yeah, you're already above average
Yeah.
compared to these other people that have a little bit of a slapdash plan. And so what
Mhm.
I'm getting from you here is that it's really important to be organized enough where everything comes together on launch day. And it's reassuring that you give some of these doable numbers, and also that it's about the people, right? You're not
Yeah.
saying, well, you dump this money into ads or do this magic traffic method. You're saying, hey, well, who do you already know? Who's already in your following? Who's already in your list? And what people can be in your corner and ready to go on launch day. And so, as you know, as an author and a publisher, stories are really what makes any kind of teaching come alive, right? You can talk
Yeah.
about the theory or about the facts, but when there's a start to finish story, that's what really sticks with people, and that's what really kind of motivates us and makes us think it's possible. So, as far as the authors you helped, is there any particular story as far as a book launch that like comes to mind that jumps out at you?
Yeah, well, we've been in business now for 9 years, so we've had multiple authors. We have over 300 authors that we've helped become bestsellers on Amazon, and actually on the Wall Street Journal list as well. We've helped people become Wall Street Journal bestsellers as well as USA Today. And what really stands out to me is the people who follow the system. So we have people who say, I don't want to follow your system, and we have people who actually follow the system. And when you know that a system works and you keep following it, you're most likely going to get the same results, right? Success leaves clues. That's one of my favorite quotes. And I think Tony Robbins said that, but it's true. It's like you don't need to reinvent the wheel. If something works, then if you follow the system, it should work, right? If you turn the ignition on in the car and the wheels go around and you drive because someone invented the wheel a long time ago, you don't need to go reinvent the wheel. It's already invented, right?
Right.
So that's where I like to say success leaves clues. And so the authors who followed our system and did what we asked them to do, which is to build their list, to build their launch team, and to do the book launch campaign, the bestseller campaign, they have been successful every single time. And the ones who don't are also successful, but they might not hit the numbers the same, or they might only have one category that hits number one instead of 3 or 5, right? So, we recently just had an author, Linda Bear, and she had a great launch team. She's a yoga instructor, and she has a lot of networking groups in her circles. And so she sold a lot of books on launch day. And, we went through the same process with her as we have with previous authors, but she's probably sold about 4 times as many books as some of the other authors did, just because she was willing to follow our system. She was willing to, get her team ready by sending out the emails and doing the texts and doing the social media posts. And so on launch day, it was very successful because she hit all the numbers that we expected her to hit. And of course, we help with that too. We have people on our team that help with the book launch, and we do social media postings and blog posts, press releases, and those kind of things. But having that system and following that system is what really works. And like I said, we've had authors in the past that say they're following the system, but then when it comes down to it, you can see in the numbers that they didn't get as many sales as they thought. And it might be that they did have the launch team, they did have the people in their corner, but those people didn't follow through, right? Those people didn't do what they said they were going to do. And so that's why we always say when you have a launch team, you want to reach higher than the number of sales you want, because not everyone does what you ask them to do, right? Even if you ask them 3 times, they might not do it. So,
And that's just one of the harsh realities of life, right?
yes.
That in any case, if you say, well, I need to get across town somewhere and I need to be there in 15 minutes, leave half an hour early. If you say, I need to get this project done by next week, try to get it done in 3 days, and then it'll probably average out to, if you do a little more than you think you have to, then you'll kind of land right on your target. And it's interesting to hear about your thought process and your mindset here of saying, well, here are our numbers, here are our goals, here's the calendar, here's our system, here's our people, and there's a lot of moving parts that come together. And what's it like as far as the follow-up? Because you're mentioning about making the social posts and having your team ready and having like those marketing materials, but is it a matter of like you have to start posting 6 months out, a year out with your launch team? Do you have to contact them like every month, every week, 5 times, 10 times? What's the warm-up and the follow-up like?
Yeah, so we have a process where we want to start promoting at least 1 to 3 months before your book comes out. So there has been a few authors that have a pushback that say, I don't want anyone to know, or I can't tell anyone yet, and it's like, well, when are you going to tell them, right? So we always
So at
say,
some point.
1 to 3 months, 1 to 3 months before your book releases, you want to be telling them, you want to show your book cover on social media. You want to start a social media following if you don't have social media, and you want to figure out where your people are hanging out. So don't go start uploading on TikTok if your audience isn't on TikTok, right? So who's your book for? Make sure you're in that demographic, whether it's Instagram, maybe it's Threads or Twitter X, whatever X it's called now. Maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's, YouTube Reels. It's different places for everyone. So knowing where they're hanging out and then posting there about your book, but not always about your book, always the other stuff that you're doing in your life, right? And then, of course, the emails we usually do a month before the book is released, we send out an email, and then a week before, the day before, and the day of. You can do more than that. That's just the minimum, right? But
Right.
that's your launch team making sure that they're ready, and you might have some lives where you do Instagram live or LinkedIn live if your people are on LinkedIn, and do some recordings talking about your book, talking about the process. The fun thing to do when you have a social media following and you get more following is when you're writing a book, is to pop up for 5 minutes or 2 minutes and just do a live like every other day saying, today we got the book cover done, or today I worked on this chapter, or, just kind of that author journey, because people want to know what you're doing in that journey.
And it all sounds very scientific, but in a good way, right? Because
Yeah.
it's predictable, it's doable. You have many steps. There's kind of the consistency there, and it also seems like writing the book is the easy part, or and then when the real work begins is all this other kind of getting things in motion. And also what comes to mind is you mentioned before success leaves clues, and so you see other books that are kind of similar to yours in your space. And I
Mhm.
mean, all those posts that they made are all still there, including what their launch team did. So it's easy enough with a little bit of work just to play detective and say, okay, where did they post? Who did was helping them? What did they hang out? And you can kind of see what
Mhm.
has been done and follow in their footsteps. And then also that phrase comes to mind from Gary Vee, the jab, jab, right hook of
Yeah.
like, well, instead of just saying, here's my book, here's the link every single day, who cares about that? But if you mix in the the engagement posts and the viral posts and all those sorts of things, but then mix in the book part of it, then that can become a lot of fun too. And so,
Mhm.
you're mentioning about how some of these authors have the mental hangups, so they don't follow through or don't follow the system or have the objections. But what really grinds your gears the most? What makes you angry about the ways that the authors might sometimes drop the ball with their book launch?
Yeah, don't really have any beef too much with any authors, other than, like I said before, like they say they're going to do something and they don't. But what I found is that some authors are just too busy because they have another job, they have another thing, right? Their book isn't their main thing. They have a whole nother gig going on. And if that's the case, if they can afford it, it's great to just hire that out, right? Hire someone to post on your social media for you. Hire someone, you do the videos and then send them to someone to post, that kind of thing, right? You give them the content. If they have your manuscript, a social media company or our company can create posts from the manuscript, right? So that would be my biggest thing, is instead of not doing it at all, hire someone to do it for you. Or now with AI, you can create posts, that you can set it up to go schedule it. Meta has scheduling tools. There's so many ways you can post for yourself or hire someone to post for you. Or just, be real and authentic and be you. I think that's the other thing that I like about social media, is just being you. That's why TikTok and I don't know if you heard of Book Talk or Bookstagram,
Oh
but both
yeah.
of those, if you use hashtag Bookstagrammer or Bookstagram, or even Book Talk instead of TikTok when you're on, you can hashtag or do a hashtag um, Book Talk, and you can find lots of authors and you can see their success, and you can model them or hire someone to model them.
Wonderful. And it seems like there's always going to be excuses, but there's less
Mhm.
excuses now, right? Because
Yeah.
the social media, it's a lot faster, more accessible. There are the AI tools. You can more easily and quickly see what's being done. And you still have to rise above some of those mental blocks. You still have to express yourself. But it seems like, and you probably have seen this from being a 16-time best-selling author, when you put out a book, you yourself change, and things come out of the book that you didn't expect, and it's this weird form of self-expression and self-transformation. But and
Mhm.
it's like you have a choice of either, well, kind of taking this book launch thing halfway and staying in the safe comfort zone, and then you sort of get mediocre results, or really dedicate yourself to this, whether dedication means that you consistently set aside time, or if you don't have the time, then set aside the money. That way someone else can put in the time. But it seems like either way, the big lesson in today's conversation is you can't just put out a book and kind of sit and wait for it to happen. All these many things have to happen over this 1 to 3 month period. That way you can really make a splash and make an impact and get some book sales. And that way it will move the needle in your business instead of just being something that you kind of did as a side project. And so why should someone use Elite Online Publishing specifically when there's other publishers out there and self-publishing? We kind of explained some of the things that could go wrong, but like, what is the experience like when they find you and you get the help? Like, why should they really, aside from the best-selling status and the clarity, why should they use Elite Online Publishing?
Yeah, well, we've been around for a while. So the difference between us and a traditional publisher, say, is a traditional publisher, you really have to have a book, a pitch for your book, a book pitch, and you have to have a book agent. So that agent is actually going to speak for you to all the traditional publishers. So you can't just talk to a traditional publisher and they hire, they give you money and they publish your book. You have to have a book agent pitch for you. The other thing is that the process might take 2 to 3 years before your book is out, and the traditional publishers, they have the final say in everything. So they pretty much do your book cover. They do all the marketing. They do everything. It's nice because they do everything, but a lot of times you have to read that fine print, because sometimes that advance that they give you in the beginning, if you read the fine print, that money is supposed to be for marketing. So you're supposed to actually invest that into your book. It's not for you just to keep and go buy groceries or buy clothes or go on a trip. It's supposed to be for marketing the book. So you really need to read the fine print for that. And then the difference between us and the traditional publisher is we actually don't keep any rights or royalties. So the author keeps all their rights and they own the copyright to their book, and they get to keep all their royalties. And we actually don't make any money on the print copies as well. So when you order a print copy, you're actually ordering it from the printer, and the printer is, whatever the price is to print it, that's what you're paying. So we don't make any money on the book printing as well. So that's different. And then that's also the main difference between a vanity press or a hybrid type publisher. Sometimes it's like you're self-publishing, but not really, because they're taking some of your royalties. They're charging you money when you buy books, and they also they own your rights. So some vanity press and some hybrid publishers, they own the rights to your book. So we're a little bit different than that, because on the copyright page it says in association with Elite Online Publishing. So you still get, Elite Online publishing for you, but it's still copyrighted under your name, and it's all under your own account, and all the money goes into your bank account.
That makes a lot of.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying that this makes a lot of sense. It seems like a way more logical way to go compared to the alternatives.
Yeah, and we don't believe in, a lot of hybrid publishers and traditional publishers say, this is what the package is, or this is what's going to happen, and you're going to get 5,000 books, and you're going to keep those in your garage for the next 8 years. So
Right.
we don't believe in that. So we believe all in print on demand. So all your books are going to be printed. They're going to be published everywhere books are sold. When someone buys one, it's printed and shipped to them. And then if you need books, then you're going to order how many you need. So you're going to do a book signing party and you're expecting 200 people there. You're going to order 250 books to make sure you have enough, maybe 300 books if people are going to buy multiples. And then you're going to have that book signing party. So we're going to have a purpose for every time you order books. And so that's a little bit of a difference. And then, of course, you get to keep the rights and royalties. And then, the other thing is the marketing piece, which we already talked about in the beginning. But a lot of book publishers, if you go with someone who's just helping you self-publish, will just throw it up on Amazon and say, good luck, bye, And that's not what we do. We actually help you market the book. We help you figure out who your avatar is, why you're publishing it, what you want them to do when you're done, and then also help you with the marketing piece. So helping you to know what to do. That's what this book I wrote is my third book. with Everett O'Keefe, and it's how to make money with your book. So there's a whole multiple ways. This is only 21 of the ways, but there's lots of ways to make money with the book, and you got to continue marketing it.
Very nice. And I just interviewed Everett O'Keefe a couple weeks ago on this podcast. He lives about 90 miles south of me in Fresno.
Oh,
So
awesome.
yeah, and he's an amazing person as well. And so yeah, a lot of these things that you mentioned, I was picturing like individual exact people who have been through some of these so-called horror stories, right? When you hear the term vanity press, you think, okay, that's the 5,000 books in the garage. When you hear about the hybrid publishing, you think, okay, that's where they actually own my book instead of me, and where I get like a tiny sliver of the royalties. When you think traditional publishing, you think, well, that'll be like 2 to 10 years before it's even out, and there'll be all kinds of revisions and changes. And so there's a lot of ways to go wrong with publishing, including self-publishing, when you don't have this marketing help. And so it makes a lot of sense to talk to you and your team. And like, what's the price range like? Like, I imagine that like there's different like
Yeah.
levels
Yeah, it
of
really
interest. What's that
depends.
like?
It really depends on what your needs are and where you're at in the process. So some people come to us with an idea, so they still need to write their book. So we help them with writing and editing and ghostwriting if they want, or just helping them with a book coach to help them get their book written. Some people come to us with everything written and ready to go and just ready to publish. But then it also depends on their marketing needs, like if they're going to be able to market some on their own, or if they want us to do it all for them. If they want all formats of the book, or if they just want ebook and paperback. And by all formats, I mean, do you also want a hardback? Do you also want an audiobook, right? Because there's multiple ways to consume content. And a lot of people like the physical book, but a lot of people listen on audio, right? So, and other people also want the Kindle because they want to have it on their Kindle, or they want the hardback for collection to collect them because it looks great on their shelf. So you really want to have all formats, but you might not have the budget, or you might just say, oh, I'd rather just start with an ebook and paperback. So it really depends on the needs of the client. And that's the other differentiator for us. We don't have just one package. We have, multiple packages, so we can see what are your needs and how can we help you achieve those.
Super cool. And so that's helpful advice of thinking, well, how far along can I get with what I have so far? Do I just have the idea? Have I written the book? Do I need help finishing that? And then what do I want to accomplish? Do I want the marketing? Do I want the audiobook? Do I want the print book? And those are all important, helpful decisions to make. And so how does someone take action on this? How do they go to the website? What do they do? Is there a way for them to get on a phone call with you and figure this out? What's the next step call to action?
Yeah, so they can just visit eliteonlinepublishing.com, and we have an author submission form. And then one of our team members will meet with you and see if we're a good fit. We're not always a good fit. We only publish books that are educational, motivational, and inspirational. So if your book doesn't kind of fit in that, it might not be good for us. But we also want to work with someone who, is an action taker and a go-getter. So we don't want to work with someone who's lazy or who's procrastinator, right? So we always we kind of want to just get to know you, talk to you, and see what your goals are, and see if it's a good fit for us to work with you.
And that I find that to be important as far as any kind of marketing message, right? If you're on a podcast like this, talking about your services or a book, you think about, who am I excluding? Who is this not for? And that just helps to take shape about what you want. And so you said, if you're an author who is educational, motivational, and inspirational, and you want to make the effort, do the work in exchange for the fulfilling reward of being perhaps a Wall Street Journal bestselling author or a USA Today bestselling author, and doing the book launch properly, then Jenn Foster and EliteOnlinePublishing.com are the people that you need to have with you in your corner. And as we wrap up our conversation here, Jenn, do you have any final parting words of advice for these future authors? I mean, putting out a book sometimes takes years. It's this whole life bucket list thing, and it can sometimes be discouraging to do it with all the work, especially if you go it alone. So do you have any, since we're talking about motivational, inspirational, do you have any exciting, just helpful message for these future authors?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it on the nail a minute ago when you said they're going it alone. So I think that's what you kind of, my motivational piece to you and to help you is, you don't have to go it alone. So people have done it before. Find someone or use a company like us that has done it before so that you're not figuring it out all on your own, so that you're not missing the steps that you need to take to self-publish or to have someone help you self-publish and to get your book published properly so that it can be a number one bestseller or a Wall Street Journal or a USA Today or even an award-winning bestseller, right? You can win awards with your books as well.
And you said it yourself, success leaves clues, and you
Mhm.
don't want to reinvent the wheel from scratch. You're born one day and you didn't learn math and you said, I'll invent algebra, I'll invent long division. There's no way you'd invent all these things. But if you
Right.
open up a book, it's already been done for you. So why do it the hard way? And likewise with this whole book launch concept, books, whenever you look at the statistics about how many thousands of books are launched per day in the US and China, it's a crazy amount. And
Mhm.
at first you think, man, there's so much competition, but you also think other people have figured out this sort of a formula, but there's also so many hundreds of tasks. So there's the learning and there's the doing. So you need this team at eliteonlinepublishing.com to help you out. That way it's not just you doing it. So Jenn Foster from eliteonlinepublishing.com. It's been wonderful speaking with you.
Thank you. And if you guys want to get a free gift from us, you can go to eliteonlinepublishing.com/gift. And you can also receive a gift by putting in your name and email there.
Well, fantastic. And what is the gift?
It's a book, of course, a free
A
book.
book about what?
I believe right now we change it all the time. So I think right now it's the podcast authorized book.
Ooh, exciting. So,
Yeah.
so if you are a future book author, you're probably a future reader. So go to eliteonlinepublishing.com/gift and see what there is. That way you have some reading material to help you out, send you on your way. So thanks very much, Jenn.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Super awesome.